Hello everyone, it's Jeff here. Making a contest video. It's my second video that I'm making today. And this is for a contest run by Noble Records. It's 750 subscriber contest, but he's well past that by now. I think he's up to like 850 or more. Deservedly so. I'm a new subscriber to you, Dylan. I'm sorry I didn't find your channel sooner. I know in your comment you said that you've been watching my channel for a while now, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry I didn't catch your channel right away. But as other people that I follow started entering your contest, that's how I found out about you. So the contest really did what it was supposed to and draw new subscribers like me. So I'm a new subscriber. One thing I want to, before I do my contest entry, I saw your newest video, Dylan, about should you open, it was asking the question if you should open sealed original copies of vinyl. I firmly stand in the yes you should camp because to me, music is just meant to be played, not, looked at or, stuck on a shelf somewhere to potentially be flipped somewhere down the road for future profit. That ain't for me. And I'll give an example of what I'm talking about here. Several years ago, I found an estate sale that was selling tons and tons and tons of records, all for $1 a piece. And as I was fighting my way through the crowds, I got a copy of Flaming Pie by Paul McCartney. When I bought this, it was sealed, and it only cost me $1. Now, I found out later that because this album came out in 1997, when vinyl was pretty dead, this copy is probably worth something. So, I got a good deal on it, obviously, but as you can see, it's open. It's a gatefold record. And I cracked that sucker open as soon as I got it. Here's the record itself, brand new, played only by me. And if it's worth less because it's open, so what? I'm never going to sell this record. And whoever I leave my records to when I die can enjoy it for themselves and decide what they want to do. But for me, there's no point in just leaving it sit sealed just to look at the cover. I have the same philosophy with comic books too, because I'm a big comic book collector. And you can get comic books slabbed, and while that does have its advantages in terms of eliminating arguments over condition, you can't read the dang things. All you can do is look at the cover. So I don't have any slab comics either. I have them in bags and boards, but I can still read them whenever I want to. So, but that's a whole different subject. So this was just an example that I used of an album that I found sealed that I just opened. And oh well. So yes, you should never feel bad about opening a sealed copy, especially if it's a Grail record of yours, no matter what its age is, because music is meant to be enjoyed. So there you go. Okay, on to your contest. Now, it was 5 questions. I've got a stack of records here for my answers. So I'm going to try and do this as quickly as I can. Okay, first question. What was your first memory with vinyl? When I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I want to say among my earliest memories are of music. I lived, well, my folks lived in a house in a suburb called Oak Forest, and my ma had they had a stereo from Montgomery Ward's with a little receiver that lit up. A little cheap plastic turntable, and my ma would spin records all the time. Mostly it was black music, soul music, and I have two of them in my collection. They're really not playable anymore, but the ones that I remember hearing, my earliest memories of music, actually, even though it was on vinyl, is of, this is one of the albums, Let's Stay Together by Al Green. This is my mom's copy that I inherited. It is, I'll just show you the back quickly. It is no longer playable. I only keep it for sentimental reasons. Yeah, I think this record got some water damage to it. You can really see on this label it's pretty highly stained, and it's pretty well scuffed up, scratched up, and it doesn't really play. But I keep it, you know, because for sentimental reasons. And I'm a big fan of Al Green, and this is one of his best albums. I should probably track down a better copy of this to have as a listening copy. But this is just one of my earliest memories. Let's Stay Together by Al Green. And the other one is Gladys Knight and the Pips. This album's called Imagination. And the song Midnight Train to Georgia was on this record. Right there, it's the first track. And anytime I hear that song on the radio now, it just takes me right back to that early time. And again, just like the other record, it's on the Buddha Records label, but it's in a little better shape than the Al Green, but it's still very noisy. And it's probably not something I would want to subject my needle to for very long. So, like I said, my ma was very much into soul music back in the day. So, Al Green and Gladys Knight were my earliest memories on vinyl records, I guess you could say. The second question, what was the first record you fell in love with? I've shown this one before. First record I ever got that was considered, you know, my own record, I got for Christmas, 1983, Hall & Oates Rock and Soul Part 1. I love the song Kiss on My List. I remember seeing them on Solid Gold. And I'm sure some of the older folks out there remember that show. And that was on this record, along with all of their other early 80s hits. So this was the first record I ever got. It's the one that really knocked me over. And to this day, I still love Hall & Oates. So, third question. This is where I've got a bunch of examples to show. It says, what records have great significance for you? Well, in terms of taking you back to a certain place, certain time, or remembering certain people, music does that for me better than almost anything. So I'm just going to run through a couple of examples. Born in the USA, I see this album or I listen to it and it just reminds me of 1984. Wherever I was, whatever I was doing, it was that summer between 8th grade and high school. Graduated 8th grade, was just about to start high school. This album was all over the radio, and it just, anytime I hear something off of it, I always get that little sidestep feeling of almost like traveling back in time, because it takes me back to 84. Same thing with Led Zeppelin. This is Physical Graffiti. Basically, my whole high school career, I spent discovering and listening to Led Zeppelin. So anytime I hear something by them, doesn't really matter what album, I just pick this one just to show. Takes me back to high school. Cruising around in my buddy's Camaro, going anywhere and everywhere around the south side, southern suburbs of Chicago. So Led Zeppelin does that for me. Just like Springsteen signifies 1984, Joshua Tree by U2 signifies 1987. This was the album that year for me, and again, it just clicks me back in time to that year, you know, when I first got my license, got my first car, finally got, you know, a certain semblance of freedom, first tentative steps towards adulthood, and this was the soundtrack for that. So this has significance for me also. Then, talking about remembering certain people along with certain places. I've shown this before and used this as an example. Woodface from Crowded House reminds me of the spring of 1991. I was in college at St. Xavier University. I only went there for a year. But that was where I met my wife, or the woman who would become my future wife. And the songs off of this record, once again, served as the soundtrack to that, because it was all over the radio, and still love this album, and the songs on it always take me back to that time, which would be spring of 91. Then, in terms of musical styles, Bitches Brew by Miles Davis was like the first jazz album that clicked in my head, that kind of made me say, oh yeah, jazz could be a thing that I might be interested in. So this album holds the significance for me, and this is also one of my mom's albums, but unlike the Al Green and the Gladys Knight, this album is in pretty mint condition. I was super surprised to get this album from her and clean it and play it, and it really sounds really quiet and good. So I was very happy to get this one. And this started my, well, I don't know if it's really a journey, because I haven't really gone as far into jazz as I'd like yet, but Bitches Brew kind of opened the door to the possibility that jazz music could be something for me. And then, last album for this question, Stevie Ray Vaughan was the first, you know, blues man that was popular when I was growing up, when I could actually follow him in real time, instead of having to go back to the 50s and 60s and 70s for, you know, the older blues guys. So Stevie Ray, and this is his first album, Texas Flood. Hearing him play and seeing him get popular and becoming a fan of his music in the 80s, you know, really opened the door to blues music for me too. Besides the Blues Brothers movie. I should have pulled the soundtrack for that too, I suppose. But, yeah. Just lost my train of thought. Stevie Ray Vaughan, like I said, really helped open the door to blues music for me. And after getting into him, you know, it made me want to go back and track down a lot of the older music by the original electric blues guys. So in that respect, this record has great significance for me too. So I hope that answers the question. Talking so much, I need a drink. Okay. Question number 4. What album did you spend the most on? Well, for a single album, I've never spent over 100. Or I've never spent 100 or over, I should say. I can't ever see myself doing that. Not for a single album. There could be exceptions, maybe if I was in the right moment and I had it in my hand and the opportunity, like to get, like, say, you know, original Big Star albums, you know, on the Ardent label or something like that. But I really don't see myself spending triple digits for a single record. That's not saying I haven't come close. I've got 2 examples here. And they were both really tough to get in the first place. So once I had the opportunity to buy them, it kind of softened me up, even though the price was a little bit higher. I think for both of these, I think I paid, I want to say like around 70 or 75 each. Something like that. It's been a while since I bought them. I don't like keep track of that stuff, but I just know that Ragged Glory by Neil Young was super tough to find. And by the time I was able to track down a decent copy, a decent condition copy, you know, the prices for them were pretty high. So after, I don't know how many years I'd been looking for it, you know, I had it on CD, but I wanted to have it on vinyl too. You know, it's one of those things that by the time I was able to get it, I just said, you know what, screw it, just give it to me. Just here, take my money. So this was one of the harder to get and pricier albums for me in recent years. And the other one, and this is going to kind of tie to the last question in your contest, Back in '72 by Bob Seger. This is another one that, here we go, because it's on the Palladium label. These albums never got reissued. The albums where Seger was on the Capitol label did get reissued in the later '70s, and it has carries the orange Capitol label. So I think that was early to mid '70s Capitol labels that they were using at that time. But for a couple of records, he was on the Palladium label, and those you just can't find. So by the time I was able to get this one, just like with Ragged Glory, you know, it's one of those things, you never know if you're going to have a chance at it again. So you're kind of stuck. And so you got to pay. Yeah, I think I paid like 75 for this one. And I think that's the most I've ever spent on a single album, which is a lot of money. And I know it. But what are you going to do? I had to have it. And I'm a big fan of early Bob Seger. I've talked about that a lot in my early videos. And that's going to tie into the fifth question in your contest, which is what is your ultimate grail? That would also be a Bob Seger album. And I know Billy Hurst has a copy. I don't know who else in the VC does that I've seen, but it's a Bob Seger album. It's called Brand New Morning. And that is an album that will likely never be reissued because Seger himself hates it. It flopped when it came out. I was able to, you can stream it online. I could find videos on YouTube even of people that have uploaded the album. But I would love to have a copy of that on vinyl. So, but even the few that I found online have been just insane prices, and the quality is just, from the pictures that I see, they look kind of sketchy. So that's probably one record I'll never get, but that would be probably one of my ultimate grails that I can think of right off the top of my head. Brand New Morning by Bob Seger. So, and of course I can't show that because I don't have it. So there you go. That's going to be it for me, for my entry for this contest. I hope you liked it, Dylan. Good luck to everyone who's entered. And I will see you guys soon. So take care, peace, and I'll see you.